We'll do a review on Likutei Sichos in Chelik Yutes, volume 19. This is the Sicha for Rosh Hashanah. This Sicha is structured a little bit different than most of the Sichas that we've been learning. Most of the Sichas have been worked through into a subject matter and the question and the answers. This Sicha is basically transcribing the Rebbe, the way the Rebbe talked at the time. So this was Fabrengen on Rosh Hashanah, and they are transcribing it as the Rebbe speaks. And the Rebbe speaks various different points in the Fabrengen that get together. And this was on Rosh Hashanah. The schedule was that Rosh Hashanah was Thursday and Friday. And Rebbe talks a little bit about the second day of Rosh Hashanah, which is on Friday, because technically that's when Adam Rishon was born on a Friday, but the first day of Rosh Hashanah cannot be on a Friday, but the second day, which is a Yom Arichta, so it's technically at the end of the second day, that's the real birth of Adam Rishon, the Yom Vov. He was born on the Friday. The Rebbe also discusses the fact that the Tzemach Tzedek birthday is on Erev Rosh Hashanah, and many other aspects of it. But right away, in the beginning of the Sikha, there's a star Rosh Hashanah, because we'll see the Rebbe associates the fact that people got together to in a holy place for a Fabrengen, and because it was they didn't wash, it was they didn't want to be put a smap over there. They just the Rebbe said for everybody to make kiddush before the shkia. I make l'chaim before the shkia, that was a Friday late afternoon Fabrengen before shkia for Rosh Hashanah. As the Rebbe will discuss some of it in the talk further, but in the star it says this is a note that the publisher is Haroras Hamaitzel that the Rebbe washed his hands for the meal, because it should washing, because that was for the meal of Rosh Hashanah. And the Rebbe instructed that they should announce that those who had not yet washed their hands for the meal should go ahead and wash now. And then the Rebbe instructed that they should announce that the l'chaim people should say before the shkia, because otherwise it becomes the issue with the kiddush and everything else. So the Rebbe says to say l'chaim before the shkia. And eventually the Rebbe also asked, they're in the mushis. The mushis, those are a term for those who collect in the field after everybody has already collected. This is the leftover. So there's the people who are late behind, those are called the nemushis. The Rebbe said, are there any nemushis? And then the Rebbe begins what we're quoting over here, the Sikha, that while the Pasuk talks about Hashem bringing us together, but that all starts with us coming together. And the fact that this is a Fabrengen, we are all here together and we merit the extra blessings and the power that Hashem gives us in this being together. Let's look inside. Aleph. This verse of the parsha that starts with you standing today, all of you, simply it's talking about standing today. This is talking about before Moshe Rabbeinu's passing. This was on Zion Oder. Moshe Rabbeinu is saying to them, you're all standing here today, before Hashem, and counts all the various different categories. But really, the Alter Rebbe says that this is in place, it took place at Moshe Rabbeinu's passing, but in time, this takes place before Rosh Hashanah. Every time before Rosh Hashanah, Atem Nitzovim Hayoim. Hayoim goes on Rosh Hashanah, on the day of judgment. We are all standing together. Zog der Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe says, as Hayoim gate of Rosh Hashanah, that Hayoim refers to Rosh Hashanah. What does it mean? We are all standing before, you are all standing before God, your God. We're all standing, all of us, together. Which means, thus haste, it means, as alle Yidden, all Jews, all categories, from the leaders of the tribes. This enumerates in the pasuk the last category. Those are your wood chopper, unshoyev meimecha, and the one that draws your water. Those are on the bottom of the categories. And also all the categories that are all steps that are in between the leaders of the tribes and the wood choppers and water drawers. They're all together. We're standing all together. As he explains over there, we are united like one. We are together like one. All the various different levels and the different categories amongst the Jewish people are all united, and they're all standing as one. Now, this is the way we have from Hashem, that Hashem brings us all together. It's Tzavim from Hashem. But we have the part that we put ourselves all together in order to bring about that Hashem brings us together. That is how this idea, we're all together standing, this is accomplished from the above. Through the fact that we are standing before Hashem Elokeichem, standing before God. So God makes us all, unites us all, makes us together. So with their Taich was bringt sich in Chassidus. So as the interpretation, the translation, as is brought down in Chassidus, from word nitzovim, the word nitzovim, atem nitzovim is an expression that you are been placed to be standing. As this is Loshen Nifal, it has been done as in werden nitzovim aufgestellt, so that we are, it's not that we are the one act of nitzovim, not a poyel, but rather a nifal, that it has been accomplished by us, that in werden nitzovim aufgestellt durch an Eibishter, that we are standing up, stood up by Hashem. Hashem raises up so that's from Hashem. So that accomplishment that we're all together, we're standing, that comes from above. But we have to prepare ourselves, because we need to make our investment. There needs to also be the service, the work of the person, which is his kav. It says it's his measure. We say that a person wants rather his measure 1 rather than 10 of his friends. So first you need your own measure that you invest yourself. And then the Rebbe suggests that then you get the 9 kavim, then you get from Hashem that the nifal, the nitzavim, is the result after we have your own investment. The yeshloimar, and we can say as durch the ruif, that through your own investment, we're standing together, getting together, lachodim, then we merit, we receive oich the tisha kavim shel chaveroi, the 9 measures of your friend. You want your own 1, and then you get the 9 of your friend. Normally, friend refers to another person that they give to you, but we also find in the pasuk that a friend refers to Hashem. In this case, it means that we get the 9 measures from your friend, from Hashem, he brings about the atem nitzovim if you are nitzovim. Vos chavere gate oifun eberst. When we say your friend, this is referencing Hashem as your friend, and that is Virashi touched up in Masechta Shabbos, as Rashi interprets in Tractate Shabbos. Posig over there, they quotes the Posig. It says Re'acho v'reya avicha al taziv. Your friend and the friend of your father. Who is this your friend that we're talking about? So Rashi translates it that Re'acho and Re'ya avicha as Re'acho ze HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That this is referencing HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem is considered to be the friend. So, which means that kav that you invest more than the 3 kavim that you start with your own kav, and then you get the 9 kavim from Hashem. Das heißt, as dur chaveidose in kav shaloi, that through your service in your kav, what your investment, your measure, hoter Allah asora kav, then you get all the 10. You get your own kav shaloi, one of yours, on the tisha kavim shel chaveda, and the 9 measures of your friend. So you get a total of 10. What is the kav shaloi? Getting together today at the Fabrengen to be atem nitzovim. That's the kav shaloi. That is something that you have to start with before you get the 9 kavim from above. You always have to start with your avodah. Because bepashtus, and simply, is the hascholas avodah funayidin in the roif, the beginning of the service of a yid is the fact dos vos Yisrael kadeshinu lizmanhim. How do we have the Chlal Rosh Hashanah? It has to start with a yid. It's Yisrael. We know Mekadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim, that it is the Yidden that sanctify the time, because the Yidden decide when the Rosh Chodesh is, and the Rosh Hashanah is by the day of the month. It's the first of the month. So the Yidden are Mekadesh, the month. So it starts, everything, the whole Rosh Hashanah starts with the Yidden. Because the Far Zokman Rosh Hashanah, that's why in Rosh Hashanah, in the Kiddush, you say Mekadesh Yisrael v'yem hazikorin. That first you are Mekadesh, the Yidden, and then the Yidden do the Yem HaZikaron. We don't say Mekadesh Yem HaZikaron. It's the Yidden, because we have to say the Eibishter gives the Yidden the Kedusha, so that the Yidden with their Kedusha can be Mekadesh, and they make up the month that Mekadesh is Manim. So it is the investment, the Kav, that means that is the investment of the Yid that starts with the Rosh Hashanah. Noisef Lazeh, but in addition to that, durch der Ruf, through this, was Yidden kleiben sich zusammen, ki ish echad b'leiv echad, that the Yidden gather together to be with as one person with one heart. In this case, we're all gathered together to leave ein matorah und ein inyan, for one purpose and for one subject. That's why we all got together. So they accomplish through their service, that their investment, what the Yidden are doing, in addition, they add to the idea that you're standing all today together by the Yidden acting in that way, gathering especially when you tie this get together mit hadover gashmi, with physical, meaning they had the chala, the chayim. So this is physical matters. Was verdam ubosar kibisore, that turns into blood and flesh like your own flesh. So you're taking material, physical things, digesting it, and it turns into part of your flesh. Befrat, especially not just the food, but zog, When we say as the Gashmi V'Zayin L'Chayim, we say that the physical, the toast that you make, you say it should be L'Chayim to life. Was demot Zogin Razal, our sages tell us as Gedoyla L'Gima Shemekareves that there is a greatness to this getting the food and the drink together that brings people together. So this is an idea of Nitzovim Hayoim Kulchem. Ubefrat, and especially the Rebbe says that this is Oich Farbunden mit Ayontev. This is also tied, this get together is tied with a good day, with a day of Yom Tov, Rosh Hashanah. And about Rosh Hashanah, it says in the Navi was Avim State about this Yom Tov of Rosh Hashanah, it says, Chedvas Havaye Hima Uzchem. Over there, the Pasuk talks about, the Rebbe will bring down the Psukim in Nehemiah that discuss the celebration of Rosh Hashanah. And the Pasuk says over there that Chedvas Hashem, the joy of Hashem is your strength, Hima Uzchem. Unas Damul Dar Zayin, and at that time, as the Pasuk says, there should two mamtakim, drink sweets, noisef to ichlu mashmanim, in addition to eating stuff, fatty stuff, things that are fatty and tasty. I also have to drink mamtakim. So that's the connection with the Yom Tov, with the Rosh Hashanah, with the L'Chayim. And then especially we take into consideration that those is a Rosh Hashanah for Ashnas Hakil. This is a Rosh Hashanah of a Hakil year. The year, that year following that Rosh Hashanah was going to be Hakil. So, was das hebt sich schon an von Rosh Hashanah von dem Jahr. The Hakil year starts from Rosh Hashanah, although literally Sukkot was the time, Cholamoid Sukkot was the time that the king got the Hakil together, but yet the Rebbe says it starts from Rosh Hashanah, because with their Pasuk Zokt, as the Pasuk states, as Mekates Sheva Shonim, at the end of 7 years, Tav Zayin Hakil needs to be Hakil. So the Pasuk defines as the Hakil after 7 years, was Mekates Sheva Shonim. When is the end of 7 years? Heipzichon from Rosh Hashanah. That starts with Rosh Hashanah. So on Rosh Hashanah is the time of the beginning of Hakil, as the Pasuk says, at the end of 7 years. The Rebbe adds to this, not only is it because it's Mekates Sheva Shonim, but according to Chassidus, what comes out revealed on Sukkot is hidden in the Rosh Hashanah. So meaning that the Hakil, which takes place at Sukkot, is also incorporated in a hidden way in Rosh Hashanah. Especially according to this, that Chassidus explains on the verse, Bakese liyom chagenu, that Bakese, that it is hidden, and for the day of Chagenu, that's the day of the festival, which is Sukkot. That on Rosh Hashanah, things are hidden that come out openly on Chagenu. As the Inyonim fun Chagenu, Chag HaSukkos, those matters of our celebration, our holiday, the festival of Sukkot, Chagenu, Zainen Shoindo Berosh Hashanah, they already exist in Rosh Hashanah in an oifun from Bakese, in a way that it's hidden. Yesh Loimar, so we can say, as oich der inyan fun Hakil was is bechagenu, that also this idea of Hakil, which takes place literally in Chagenu, in Sukkot, during the festival of Sukkot, is Shendo Berosh Hashanah in an oifun from Bakesa. So it already exists in Rosh Hashanah in a way that it is hidden. So basically, we are already dealing with the Sukkot, with the Hakil. So therefore, the Rebbe is instructing, Zol Yeder Einer Zogen L'Chayim Al Hayayin. Everybody should say L'Chayim on wine. And Darv Dozayin Far de Shkia, that should be before sunset. How should you say the l'chaim? Either zogen l'chaim of mashke, to say l'chaim on mashke, or noch beser, but even better is yain is wine. Was is mesameyach elikim va'anoshim, which makes Hashem and people happy. That's said about wine. So even better is to use the wine. Was der Fahr is das verbunden mit der Simcha gedoyla. That's why this is associated, the wine, with a great simcha, that it's mesameach elikim va'anoshim. Und das soll werden dam ubosar kibisore. This should become your blood and flesh of your flesh. This should become part of you. Ubefrat, das is verbunden, especially that this is tied with Rosh Hashanah and with Hakel, with Rosh Hashanah and Hakel, and with Tudos. And where do we say this l'chaim? And where do we incorporate all this? Becomes part of you in Abayis Godel. It says it's a big house, which is the pasuk in Malachim Beis. So it says over there, the great house. Why is it called Godel? So the Gemara says that it's Mokim. It's called Godel Mokim Shemagadlim by Torah. It's a place where Torah grows because they learn a Torah. Zayin do shiurei Torah. There are classes in Torah. Mokim Shemagadlim by Tefillah, and also places in which you increase davening and life of Gedula. That's why it's called Bayis Gadol. And the Rebbe says, "V'yirotzin, maybe the will as soll sich öfton alle inyonim, but darfen sich durch die Peulas öfton, that all matters that need to be accomplished through these activities, maybe the will that they should all be accomplished." And then in the star, this is the introduction that Rebbe gave to that Farbrengen. And then there is a note from the publisher that the Rebbe instructed to sing the 3 tenuos. That's the song that has the 3 different notes in it. And the Rebbe mentioned specifically the Baal Shem Tov and the Magid and the Alter Rebbe. That's the 3 notes, the 3 tunes within that one song known as the song of the Sholish Tenuos. Then the Rebbe said to sing a song of the Alter Rebbe. They began to sing Avinu Malkeinu, and the Rebbe commented that on Shabbos, which also would include the Mincha before Shabbos, we don't say Avinu Malkeinu. So they chose another song of the Alter Rebbe, which is the song of Likras Shabbos. Then to sing a song of the Mittler Rebbe, to sing a song of the Tzemach Tzedek, a song of the Rebbe Maharash, a song from the Rebbe Morshab Nishmas Eden, a song from the Rebbe's father-in-law, from the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Beinoni, and then they sang Ato Bechartona as the Rebbe's song. And then the Rebbe instructed again to sing the preparation before the Maimer song, and he said the Maimer that starts with the verse Zeh Hayom Tchilas Ma'asecha. That took place at the Farbrengen. And Ois Gimel, the Rebbe follows with the Sicha on the Maimer that he's discussed earlier. So the Rebbe in the Maimer discussed with the difference. Sometimes we say Zeh, which is a prophecy that you point to, and sometimes we say Koi, which is such, which is like, but it's not direct. And that what the Maimer discusses on the pasuk of Zeh Hayom, the inyan from Zeh Hayom Tchilas Ma'asecha. This is the day, the beginning of Hashem's actions. Und der Chilik, and also the difference between Zeh mit Koi, between Zeh and Koi, was es hat sich gerät in Maimer, that the Rebbe spoke to Maimer. So the Rebbe is saying that this idea of the Zeh and the difference Zeh and Koi, redt sich bekama mekoimes in the Drushim und Tzemach Tzedek. It is discussed in many areas in the Maimorim of the Tzemach Tzedek. B'noisef lozeh, the Hagoes Ubiyurim, in addition to the directly the Maimorim of the Tzemach Tzedek, also in the Hagoes, the notes Ubiyurim, an explanation Bechatzoyi Eagle that are in a parentheses in Likutei Torah, they're also from the middle. They're also from the Tzemach Tzedek. So there is Maimorim that discuss that. In addition, there's also the parentheses in the Likutei Torah. Wegen the minion that talk about this idea of Zeh and Koi, Zainen Kinida from the Tzemach Tzedek, it appears that these notes are from the Tzemach Tzedek. And the Rebbe says, was der Inyan from the Rosh Hashanah, this aspect of Rosh Hashanah that we say, Zeh Hayoim, Tchilas Ma'asecha, this is the day of the beginning of creation. We're saying this about the birth of Adam Arishain, so that also that's the day that is really the beginning of the action when the person was created. That has a very special connection to the Tzemach Tzedek. Warum sein Yom Haledes is be'erev Rosh Hashanah, because just like Adam Arishain was born on Rosh Hashanah, the Tzemach Tzedek was born on Erev Rosh Hashanah. Und sein Beris is given, the circumcision of the Mitler Tzemach Tzedek was in the Aseret Yomim Shebein Rosh Hashanah L'Yom Kippurim, the 10 days in between Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. Und wie gerät in der Frier Diker his Vahadus, as we had spoken in the previous gathering, the Fabrengen, as Bishaz der Tzemach Tzedek is geboren geworden. When the Tzemach Tzedek was born, had Zain Zayda, his grandfather, which is the Alter Rebbe, Gezok Torah, he said a teaching, a Torah, of Mashbin Oisiti Tzadik Chulu. Over there it talks about when a child is born, you administer an oath to the child that you should be a tzaddik and not a rasha. That Torah talk that the Alter Rebbe gave at the birth of the Tzemach Tzedek became later on, was das ist der noch geworden, the erste drei Pirkei von Tanya. Those were the first 3 chapters of the Tanya, is what he spoke at the birth of the Tzemach Tzedek. So was mashbiin oisoi tihit tzadik, that you give him the oath to be a tzaddik, which the Alter Rebbe spoke of from the Gemara, is verbunden mit Hilodas HaTzemach Tzedek. That is tied, connected with the birth of the Tzemach Tzedek. Warum mashbiin oisoi tihit tzadik? Because when we administer to him to be a tzaddik, that was administered talking about the Tzemach Tzedek, because when he was born, he got that shavua to be a tzaddik. Is by Yiddish kind Ederer wird geboren v'yotzel avir ha'olam. So that takes place by a Jewish child before he is born, before he comes out into the ear of the world, before he comes to the world, he gets that oath. So that means that the Tzemach Tzedek got that shavua at the time that he was born. And the Rebbe wants to say that the Tzemach Tzedek birth is associated with the birth of Adam Harishain. Dalet, dos hoiledes had Tzemach Tzedek. This, the birth of the Tzemach Tzedek, un as demelt is mashbi, I say, and at that time you are administering the oath to him, is euch verbunden b'miyuchad mit Rosh Hashanah. It's also tied specifically with Rosh Hashanah. But Rosh Hashanah is given Brias Adam Harishain. Rosh Hashanah, there was the creation of the first man. Adam Harishain was created from the ground, from the Ofer Minha Adama, from the earth, but that is similar to the birth he was created from, but that's similar to the creation and the birth of a child. But this is bedugma That is similar to Yeridas HaNeshama Beguf, the descent of the soul in the body, Unhailodes, and generally birth, from Yeder mentioned, every person, Ubemyuchat from Yeder Eden, and especially when we talk about a Jew, every Jew we talk about, because the name Odom, Voram Atem Kruyim Odom, and the Pasuk says Odom, it is referencing specifically the Yidden, specifically the Jews, as the Gemara says in Yevamis, and therefore there is a similarity when a person is born and he gets his neshama to the day that Adam was born and his creation. Only the Mishnah Zogt, the Mishnah actually says, while there could be thousands and millions of people in the world, but every person needs to say that the whole world was created for him. Zogt as Yeder Mensch is an olam mole, that every person is a whole world. Just as the first man was born alone, which means that the whole world was serving just one person. So that's why Adam was created alone. So we say that every person is a whole world. And even more, so that we know now, as Yeder is an Olam, we know that everybody is a complete world, which means you deserve the whole world. Is that's why a person has been created many thousands of years ago, thousands of years ago back. He was created alone so that you should know now that the world is entirely fit just for you as one individual. Similarly to Adam, who was an individual, and he was the only one in the world. But this is noch mer matgish dem kesher. This further emphasizes the connection, the tie tzivishim Brias Adam Harishin Beresh Hashanah, between the birth of Adam Harishin and Rosh Hashanah, mider hayledes von Eden, and with the birth of every Yid, because every Yid is a whole world, just like Adam Harishin. Now this took place, the birth of Adam Harishin took place many thousands of years ago. But the Baal B'chol Shana V'Shana in the Zman for the Rosh Hashanah, during every year and year, during the time of Rosh Hashanah, is Niskorim V'Nasim, as we remember and then properly, and then we make up, the day becomes the proper day. As Chazurun sich iber di Inyonim was haben getroffen bei Rosh Hashanah bepam Horishono. There is a repeat of those matters that took place on the Rosh Hashanah on the very first time, every year and year. So that includes what happened in Rosh Hashanah then. At that point, Adam Rishon was born. That is again replays itself over again every Rosh Hashanah. Is verstandig as Rosh Hashanah b'chol shana v'shana, that Rosh Hashanah and every year and year is their heiledes for Yed Eden. That's the birth of every Yid, because this is the connection to Adam Rishon and Adam Rishon's birth to every Yid, and that takes place on Rosh Hashanah. The Yesh Loimar, as dem zogen the Torah of Mashbiin Oisei Be'erev Rosh Hashanah, can say that the fact that the Tzemach Tzedek said this teaching of Torah of Mashbiin Oisei, he said it on Erev Rosh Hashanah, on the birth of the Tzemach Tzedek. Be'erev Rosh Hashanah, so we're saying it on the eve before Rosh Hashanah, is Merames Oich, that also hints, in addition, the Baal as Bereisha Shana Atzme is the Heiledes von jeden Eden, since on the Rosh Hashanah itself is the birth of every Yid, Bedugma Vibrias on Marishan, similar to the creation of the Marishan. Darf durch der Mashbi in Isaac, when the oath is administered before he was born, while he's still in the womb. So on Erev Rosh Hashanah, we need that Shvuah before the birth, which is on Rosh Hashanah itself. Dabdoch der Mashbin Oisod, the administering the oath, Zain Far Yitzias Hayelad Le'avir Ha'olam, before the child comes out into the ear of the world in Erev Rosh Hashanah on the eve of Rosh Hashanah. So, Avalpi was B'Shas, the Pamar Rishono, so we didn't need to make it a day earlier, technically, to do the Shavua. There was enough time in that day because Adam Rishon wasn't born till after 9 hours of the day, and there was time. But generally, the idea is the concept that before the birth there is the Shavua. Afalpi was Bepamo Rishono, even though on the very first time, B'Shas B'Riyas Adam Harishon, when Adam Rishon was created, Zainin in them talk from Rosh Hashanah Gufa, on the day of Rosh Hashanah itself, given Kamos Shois, Yom Fabrius Adam Rishon. There were many hours in the day before Adam Rishon was created. With the Gemara in Sanhedrin, Rechent Ois Biprotius, the Gemara in Sanhedrin details specifically and calculate as the creation of man has been set up during the process, the progression of the day, of that day, that Friday, that Adam Harishon was created. So, but yet, notwithstanding that, Erev Rosh Hashanah is before the birth of Adam Harishon, which is similar to the birth of every Yid, which is called Adam, and we're all on the same value that Adam was created alone, and that's why every Yid deserves everything, and that's why he's the Adam, and that's the relationship of the Maimer that the Alter Rebbe gave before the actual birth of Rosh Hashanah, to have that Shvuah administered. The Rebbe further is going to explain that normally Rosh Hashanah cannot be on a Friday, based on Loi Adu Rosh Hashanah, the first day. But in that year, Rosh Hashanah was on second day. Rosh Hashanah was on Friday, and that makes the connection to the actual day of Adam's birth, which was because of Yom HaRichte, it's considered as if it's on that same day as the Friday. Let's look inside. The Rebbe explains. Hey, the Kvi Shana Zu kommt zu noch mehr Hadgosha in dem Niskorim Benasim. We have more emphasis that we remember, and it's accomplished from the Rosh Hashanah, from Briyas Adam, from Rosh Hashanah, and creating of Adam Harishon, the first man. Briyas Adam Harishon, creating of the first man, Rosh Hashanah, the Pam Harishona, the first Rosh Hashanah, is given the Yom Vav B'Shavua. That was on Friday, the Friday of the week. So, but we cannot really have a Rosh Hashanah on a Friday. So, Verdoder Klau, as Lo Yadu Rosh, that Rosh Hashanah cannot be Sunday, Wednesday, or Friday. The Rambam brings a rope, as the Rambam brings this down. These as Lidas or Asag, according to the opinion of Reb Sadia Gohen, is das midiraisa from the Torah. It cannot come on these dates, Rosh Hashanah. Thus haste, which means as Rosh Hashanah kenit oiskumen b'yom vav b'shavua, cannot come out on Friday in the week. Vidos is given the Pam Rishona as it was the first time. But yet there is a way that it could come out on Friday, like in that year, when the second day Yom Tov is on Friday. The einzige Möglichkeit, as Yom Vov soll sein Rosh Hashanah, the only possibility for Friday to be Rosh Hashanah is thus ki b'kviyas Shana Zu. That's as the setup of that year. Because Yom Beis the Rosh Hashanah is b'Yom Vov b'Shavua. The second day of Rosh Hashanah is on Friday. So, but how does that help me? Because that's the second day. Adam Arisha was born on the first day. This is a day after. Although this is a second day of Rosh Hashanah. Seinen Ober Beidetek von Rosh Hashanah Yom Aricha. Both days, however, we know are considered to be one long day. Ein langer Tag, one long day. So it is actually part of the Rosh Hashanah and Rosh Hashanah on Friday. According to this, it turns out as Bikviyas Shana Zu, the way this year is set up is Rosh Hashanah in the Tog from Brias Adam Arishon Rosh Hashanah is on the day when Adam Arishon was created. Azoivi das is given the Pam Arishona just as it took place and the first time B'Yom Vov B'Shavua on Friday. So here too, Rosh Hashanah is on Friday, even though it's the second day, but still it's Yom Arichta, so Rosh Hashanah is on Friday. Und der Yom Vov B'Shavua Gufa, and in this Friday of the week, Zman Brias Adam Arishon. When is the time that Adam Arishon was born? He was born at the end of the day. It's besoif fun dem Yom Aricha, the end of the long day, as it was. Adam Arishon was born at the end of Friday. But this is b'Yom Beis the Rosh Hashanah. That is on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. That is similar, but dogma that's similar. This is given Pam Harishona, similar the way it was the first time, as Brias Adam Arishon is given the Seif Hayom de Rosh Hashanah, that Adam Arishon was created at the end of the day of Rosh Hashanah. So here too, it's at the end of the day of the Yom Arichta. So this Friday fits with the time that Adam Arishon was born. So the Rebbe says, continues over here to find the sources, talking about Yom Arichta, that Rosh Hashanah, both days. So where is the source? And the Rebbe brings the source from the prophet of Nehemiah, which we translate as 2 days, that it was there 2 days. So here is the place also to point out, to them was Rosh Hashanah is Tzvei Teg, as it relates to the fact that Rosh Hashanah is 2 days. But this is not nor in Chutz La'aretz. This is not only outside of Eretz Yisrael, Chutz La'aretz, nor Oich in Eretz Yisrael. We know that all holidays in Eretz Yisrael are 1 day, but Rosh Hashanah, even Eretz Yisrael, is 2 days. Because in the Rosh is Mudgesh der Inyan, so because all over the world we have 2 days that emphasizes together that we celebrate all Yidden all over together. Because in the Rosh is Mudgesh. Here it's emphasized their Inyan, the idea for Atem Nitzovim Hayom Kulchem, that you're all standing together. Alle Yomim Tovim. It unites all Jewish people all over the world. All other Yomim Tovim. There is a distinction between Yidden b'chutz la'aretz and Eretz Yisrael, between Yidden outside of Eretz Yisrael and the Yidden in Eretz Yisrael. In chutz la'aretz, pravent men hayom tov sheni shel golius. And outside of Eretz Yisrael, we celebrate a second day of Yom Tov, which is in the exiles, which is in the diaspora. Masha'enkin in Eretz Yisrael, as opposed to in Eretz Yisrael. That's all other Yom Tov. Rosh Hashanah, as opposed to Rosh Hashanah, Praven Ali Yidden Tzvei Teg. All Yidden celebrate 2 days. Sai Eretz Yisrael, whether you're in Eretz Yisrael, which is Eretz Asher Goimer Eina Hashem Lekecha Bo Mereshis Hashana Vadach Rishona. It's a land on which Hashem's, God's eyes God, your God's eyes are there from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. That's Eretz Yisrael. Whether you're outside of Eretz Yisrael, was dorten gefinnen sich Reiv Minyan, Reiv Binyan von Eden, in which the majority of the number, the majority of the structure of the Yidden, bis Mashiach Tzidkenu, that they bring in Eretz Yisrael until a righteous Mashiach will bring them to Eretz Yisrael. So we see on Rosh Hashanah, we have this concept of togetherness because we all celebrate together. There are those that are looking for this as Rosh Hashanah is Eich Beretz Yisrael Tzveitek, that also in Eretz Yisrael. Rosh Hashanah is 2 days. Amokar Ben Sotzchon Game. They're looking for a source when this actually started, that they celebrated in Eretz Yisrael 2 days. We actually find a very specific verse, a very clear pasuk verse in Teresh B'Ksav. In the prophet Nehemiah, now Nehemiah, the Rebbe says, is also referred to as Ezra, because the Gemara, the Alter Rebbe rufed on Al Pi Sanhedrin, based on the Gemara in Sanhedrin, that who wrote down the Ezra. Nehemiah was written by Ezra, and the Alter Rebbe refers to the Shulchan Aruch Shelo B'Hilchos Rosh Hashanah. When the Alter Rebbe quotes this pasuk, he says with Nomen Ezra. He says that we Ezra. So the reason why Nehemiah is also called Ezra, but the bottom line is that the Alter Rebbe refers to it as Ezra. But the Rebbe quotes in the pasuk of Nehemiah in Kapitel Ches, in chapter 8, the Hemshech Lozeh said that sailed as a continuation, that he relates. What took place on the first day of the 7th month, which is Rosh Hashanah, the 7th month from Nisan, on Rosh Hashanah. So the pasuk tells you what took place in the talk for Rosh Hashanah, the day of Rosh Hashanah, as not ongesagt Yidden, that the Yidden were instructed, Ichlu mashmanim, eat fatty, tasty, shtumam takim, drink sweet, and send gifts, portions to one who has not prepared. It is not for this day is holy to our master. Don't be sad. Your strength is the joy in Hashem. That's your strength. Then later on, as Idnom as Giton the poem, the Pasuk says that the Yidden actually did so. It says, Vayelchu kol lechel v'lishtois, all the people, they went to eat and to drink, l'shleach mones, to send gifts, v'lasei simcha gedoyla gomer, and to make this great joy. After all that state, the Pasuk says, Ubayom hasheni, what was on the second day? Taich and Mefarshim, so the Mefarshim translate. What is Yom HaSheni? As Yom HaSheni mean nit der Tag was kommt noch Rosh Hashanah. It doesn't mean the day after Rosh Hashanah, on the second day after, nor by Yom HaSheni shel Rosh Hashanah. But actually, says Rashi Metzudas David, this is the second day of Rosh Hashanah. So that in then already they had a second day of Rosh Hashanah. Uvis Mefarish, for Divrei Razal, they explain it based on the words of our sages of blessed memory. Their tam lozeh. What is the reason for this? As a zayin and damult given zweitag from Rosh Hashanah. Why did they make 2 days Rosh Hashanah? Or in Bimei Ezra hat men ma'aber given chodesh Elul, because in the day of Ezra, they made the month of Elul 30 days, and Memela they had to. So they weren't sure l'chatchila, and they had to keep it yontav, like the whole reason for keeping 2 days Rosh Hashanah. But the bottom line, nevertheless, the Rebbe is not going into the whole calculation over here and the reasoning, but we see that that second day yontav already started in the days of Nehemiah, because they had made it a the second day, so that Rosh Hashanah, that Elul had 30 days, not 29 days. And the Rebbe says that another point over here, the idea that there was this great simcha, Zion, Hanizkar Le'il from Nehemiah, this that we mentioned earlier from Nehemiah, as B'Yom Aleph, the Rosh Hashanah, is given what took place on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, Vayelchu kol ha'am lechem, all the people they went to eat, Goymer v'lasei simcha gedola, they made this great joy. Yesh lekasher, we can tie this lazeh to this was Kved Kedushas made it Chama Admur, that my father-in-law, the Rebbe, schreibt in Sefer HaMamorim Tovshin Gimel B'Tchilosei, in the book of the Maimorim of the year Tovshin Gimel, in the beginning, as Mezet B'Malchuso Da'ara, that you see in the government in this world, the king in this world, as Bishas Mizmachtir Amelech, that when you crown a king, is that crowning comes with a great joy, etc. So Bibalt as Malchusa Da'ara Ke'ein Malchusa Derekia, the government, the way it goes on over here in this world, is compared and similar to the governance in the heavens. Is Oich Hachtoras Hamelech the Malchusa Derekia? How is the crowning take place? Just like the crowning over here below is done with a great fanfare and joy. That's the way the crowning of Hashem in the government in the heavenly kingdom. B'shas mizmachtiv dem Eibrish to Rosh Hashanah. When we crown Hashem on Rosh Hashanah, it's done b'simcha gedola, with a great joy. And the Rebbe now, so that brings down what's the idea of the pasuk and the chemia and the joy, because that's the way the Frierdiker Rebbe says that when you do a king, you do it, when you're machtir the king, you do it with joy. And Malchusa Da'aris came Malchusa Derekia. That's the way we do it over here. That's the way we do it above also. The Rebbe is going to make a footnote now, this whole idea that we're saying what takes place below is a sign what takes place above. How could we say that? So the Rebbe gives now a sort of a parenthesis and a side point. The Rebbe is explaining a Maimer HaMuzgar, because this is a statement which is in parentheses. He's going to digress from the subject matter over here. Of the Roif was mezocht, the fact that we say, Avibal Malchusa Da'ara Ke'ein Malchusa Derekia, the governments in this world is similar to the governments of in the heavens. Is azoivi Malchusa Da'ara, so just as in the governments over here on the earth, is Achtoras HaMelech b'simcha gedola, the crowning of the king is done with great joy. Azoi is oich Malchusa Derekia, that's the way it's done in Malchusa Derekia, is dochdo di shailo. Then we have the question, how could we predict, initiate, and cause things to go above? We can do below. Just because we are doing it here, does it mean that Hashem has to do it? The Rebbe will explain it's just the opposite. The reason why we do it here is because it starts. First, the Rebbe asks the question. The question arises, as is doch nit mugrach as v'sholem zu ton inyonim lemailo v'zeizainen lemata. It is not forced, God forbid, to do things above as we are. They are here below. Is v'azoi zokmen. So how can we say? Since the government here on the ground, the crowning of the king is done with great joy, so the crowning of the king in the heavenly government also in such a way, we can't force the Malchusa Derekia what to do. This is not the only place. In many places we say similar. Al derech zeh is the shaila. This would be a similar question. B'negei to kama v'kama misholim. To many and many different parables was bringen sich in Maimore Razal in the Eibush, which are brought down in saying of our sages of blessed memory about Hashem. So they say, L'moshel l'mahadover doima l'melech bosav v'dam. What is this example? What could we compare this to? A king of flesh and blood that we're trying to equate to Hashem, similar. How could we say, as an inyan is in Agavis Neufen Lamailo, that a certain idea is in a certain way above, by them Eberst by Hashem, the far was azoyis dos lamato, because this is the way it's here below. And this shaila is similar, is oich benegeit to the moshel was the magid bringt. Also, as far as the question would be also to the parable that the magid brings down. As a zoivi by an av, that just like by a father, is do an avdo lamata, by a father here below, is nechak b'machshavte tzura saben, in his mind, in his thought, the shape, the image of his son is engraved in his thought. That's the way it's also above. As Neshamas Yisrael seinen Chokol b'machshavte for them Ebersten, that the Jewish souls are engraved in this thought of Hashem. With them chilik, with the difference, as in the moshel by them of the difference by the example by the father was is because he's human. Is Misha loy hoya loy ben ma'olam, a person who had no son ever, hasn't had a son. Cannot say that in his thought is engraved the shape of his son, which he had later on. So by human being, we can't say if he doesn't have yet a son that his son is engraved in his mind. That's the limitation. But the blessed Hashem, we don't have that limitation. This is from the Magid. Even before the Yidden war, created their shape, their image has been engraved in Hashem's thought. Because by Hashem blessed, the past and the future is one, so there's no limitation that it wasn't there yet. So the Eibishter has, even before the creation of the Yidden, the Eibishter has their shape engraved in his machshava. How could we say that? Just because that's by a father. How could we say that legabe Hashem? Who says by Hashem it works that same way? The Rebbe explains in Old Test that it's just the opposite. The reason it works in this world is because it's a result from above. Test, what's the meaning and the explanation? It says, need der pshat. It's not the meaning. As because the matter is so below. That is why is das azoy lamaila. That's why it's so above. Nor farkeret. It's just the opposite. Derfun was mized vider inyan is lamato. From that we see how this matter is below. Veisman, that we know. Das is araya. This is proof. Why is it here below? That's evidence. How it's below. So it's not that we're forcing it, but it's telling us how it is above from the way we see it over here. More than that, not only from here we can tell, but it comes from above. Because this matter is so in above, is nishtalshlu mehem, so it evolves from above, unasvert azoi lamata, and that's the way it becomes also below. And therefore, as menvil visum via inyan is lamaila, when you want to know how a certain matter is above, darf men sich zukukun wie der inyan is lamata. So we need to pay attention how this matter is below. Und davon hat man a Yediyah v'dosis l'mayla, and from that we get a knowledge, we know how it's above. Und also ist das benegeet to alle die Misholem. That's the same thing true with all parables, all examples. B'l'shoina kosuf, as the pasuk says, use a parable. It says, "Mi b'sori echzel l'ka." From my flesh I will see godliness. I will see God. While menvil azayne inyonim, because He wants, Hashem wants that your own matters zon zayn nit nori an oifun fun amuna. You should not just do it in a way of belief without having an appreciation, an explanation, a parable. We want you the idea to hold on, a knowledge with the diuk haloshen from the Rambam, as the precise, specific language of the Rambam is leida, to know, not just nit laham, and not to believe. I've spoken many times. Was das is euch der Biur, this is also the explanation, was that Tzemach Tzedek bringt in Sefer HaMitzvah Shaloi, that the Tzemach Tzedek brings in the book of mitzvahs, that the Tzemach Tzedek wrote, Vi Shaykh Zogun at Tzivui Eifemuna B'Hashem. He asked, how could we make a mitzvah of believing in Hashem? You have to believe, B'Shas Emunah is their Yisoid, but belief is the foundation and the basis on the Hakdama, the introduction from all mitzvahs v'tzivuyim, from all the mitzvahs and commands. So you have to first believe that there's somebody commanding those commands, that there is Hashem. How could you make a mitzvah to believe? Is a dar to mevayer. So he explains there, as noisef of them as the tzivui is of the protei hamuna. Besides the fact that the command is the details of the hamuna, not just believe, but there's specific detail, is oid v'iker, but the main and addition, that tzivu is nit nor lahamin. The command is not just to believe, nor oich leidashi yesham motzedishon, to know, to appreciate that. Was the far darf man haben misholim fundamato. That's why it's necessary to have parables from the way things are below. An olam hazeh, or in olam hazeh, in this world, bichdei zu verstehen the idea, in order to understand with knowledge, vidinyonim zainen lamailo, as these matters are above. Mibesori echzel laka, from my flesh I will see godliness, because we want to have appreciation. It's not just belief, it's something to make it tangible. In order to make it tangible, you need to have a mashal from your life. And similar, it is the person below, it is Adam el Elyon, he is compared to the supreme, to above. So therefore we could know from the way it takes place by a king below, how it is, so to speak, by Melech Malcham Lochem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, by the king who kings HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then we can also learn from a father here below, as it's shaped in his head, the Siyur that the Rebbe brought down from the Magid, how it takes place, so to speak, by our Father in heaven. This is also similar to this, as it relates to that which is written in the Maimorim in Tafshin Gimel, as the phone was bezet as achtoras hamelech is malchus and the ara is bo b'simcha g'dola. The fact that we see that the crowning of the king and the government below, it comes with great joy. Veisman, from there we know as azoi is oich achtoras hamelech malchus derikia. That's the way we also crown the king in malchus derikia. Ad kan ma'amen abusger. This is the end of the parentheses. So the Rebbe explained here when we say that the government above is like the government below doesn't mean that we are forcing it to be above, but the contrary. Hashem gave us an opportunity to appreciate and understand by giving us examples in our lives, in the way, in order that we should not only believe in Hashem, but we should also be able to have a understanding and an appreciation and a grasp of what's going on. And the Rebbe goes back now to the great simcha that took place in the pasuk in Nehemiah. Yud, we get it for years, Siv Zayin, as we spoke earlier, Siv Zayin, as behemshach lezevos state in Nehemiah, that a follow-up to that which is written in Nehemiah. As b'yoyim alav the Rosh Hashanah, on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, is vayilchu kol hom lechel, they all went to eat goyim velasi simcha gedola, to make a great joy, great simcha. Zog der pasuk says that the noch is given Ayim Sheni from Rosh Hashanah. There was a second day of Rosh Hashanah. What happened on the second day of Rosh Hashanah? The pasuk relates. The tzel der pasuk. Was is damol b'yem Hasheni the Rosh Hashanah given? What took place on the second day of Rosh Hashanah? Vayom Hasheni, on the second day, nesvu Rashi Ha'avis l'chol ha'am. So the head of all the fathers of the tribes of all the people, and the HaKohanim v'Alevim, the Kohanim and the Levim, El Ezra HaSefer, to Ezra the scribe, Ulahaskil El Divrei HaTorah, to understand to the words of Torah. Vayimotzu Kosuv VaTorah, and they found written in the Torah, Asher Tziva Hashem B'Yad Moshe, that Hashem has instructed through Moshe Rabbeinu, Asher Yeshvu B'nei Yisrael B'Sukkos B'Chol B'Chodesh Hashvi, that the B'nei Yisrael should sit in the huts, in the Sukkos, during the festival of Sukkos in the seventh month. And Ezra said them angesagt, and Ezra then instructed them. Asher Yashmiu V'Yavidu Koil B'Chol Oireihem B'Yerushalayim Leimer. They should announce and they should pass this the sound, make the announcement in all of the cities and Yerushalayim to say, Su'u Hahor, go out to the mountain. Vavilu Ali Zayiz V'Ali Eitz Shemen, bring branches of the olives and branches of Eitz Shemen, oil tree, V'Ali Hados, and branches of myrtle, V'Ali Tmorim, and branches of dates, V'Ali Eitz Oves, and branches of willows. Lasis Sukkos Kakosov, to make Sukkos as written. The Rebbe addresses first the Rosh and says Su'u Hahor, versus we find in Chagi, he says Alu Hahor, go up to the mountain. Here it says go out. The Rebbe explains the Loshen Su'u Hahor Goimer, the language that it says go out is al derech with the Loshen Vashteit in Chagi. This is similar to the language which is brought down in the prophet Chagi. As b'chodesh hashishi chodesh Elul b'yom echad l'chodesh, that during the sixth month, which is the month of Elul, on the first day of the month, had der Eibishter gesagt. So the Eibishter said rhetorically, Ha'am hazeh amru loy eis bo eis beis Hashem lehibanos. This people said that it's not the time. Oh, eis beis Hashem lehibanos. The time has come for Hashem to be built His house. And following that, Chagai instructed, Alu Hahor, says go up to the mountain. Vavesem eats and bring wood. Ubnu Habayis, and build the house. Over there, he tells them to go build the house. We get it back in the Rosh that his father, as the Rebbe spoke about this in the Fabrengen on Rosh Chodesh Elul. So, what's the difference? The Chiluk Beinayim, the difference. Dosh state Su'u Hahor, go out to the mountain. Don't state Alu Hahor, go here, go out to the mountain. This says go up the mountain. Was there Bir is Bepashtus? The explanation is very simply. In Chagi Retzich wegen der Matzav Koidim Shenivna Habayis. And Chagi discusses the situation before the house was built, before the Beis Hamikdash was built. Madarv gain boin the Beis Hamikdash, and we need to go ahead and build the Beis Hamikdash. Is thus an aliyah from a matzav the koidim shenivna habayis. So then it's an elevation from the situation before the house was built. So a matzav from binyan habayis to a situation that the house is built. Zokter the loshen aluha horgam. It says go out. This is an elevation. Mashenkin in Nehemiah, as opposed to Nehemiah, the pasuk we're discussing here, Retzich. We're talking about a situation there is already a Beis Hamikdash. As it says in the later psukim. So we're talking already about a Beis Hamikdash there. On the far is not alu, but go out. Although as on that day being based on Rosh Hashanah, on the second Rosh Hashanah, they had not yet fulfilled the actual mitzvah of Sukkah. It was on the second day of Sukkot. But since they had already decided then, that they will fulfill that which Ezra told them to her to go on the Mishnah, the mountain is machshava toiva HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzad from the Ma'aseh. So when you have a good thought, Hashem combines it, brings it together with the action. The meile is when b'shas the machshava toiva farzichert. So then, during the time that you just have that good thought, you're assured that this will come down in actuality, and that's how we read later on in the pasuk. In pasuk on the verse Vayelchu Vayasu Bnei Yisrael Kasher Tziva Hashem Es Moshe V'Aaron. They went and they did as Hashem has instructed Moshe and Aaron to make the Korban Pesach. When they gave to Korban Pesach, correct Rashi. So Rashi asked the question: what do you mean they made it? They didn't make it yet; it was set for Rosh Chodesh, and the Korban Pesach is the 14th. Rashi answers, but once they accepted upon themselves, the Torah considers it counted for them as if they made it. These, as in Pasuk state, Yasu, to the extent that the Pasuk says they made it, it's not even with a comparison, not Kiyasu, but they actually as if they did it. Because the phone is verstandig. That's from this we understand. But the Geyet to the Achlote from the Eden Demot, as it relates to the decision of the Eden Dem, being based on Rosh Hashanah, on the second day of Rosh Hashanah, Benegeya Mitzvah Sukkah, as it relates to the Mitzvah Sukkah, Ashoin Damut, Verdos Farechen Vezehom Dos Giton Bepoil, that already then it's considered as if they had already done this actuality. The Nog der Zel the Posik, then further the Pasuk relates with the Eden of Mekayim given the Poyel Mitzvah Sukkah, how the Eden actually fulfilled practically the Mitzvah Sukkah. Pasuk says, Vayetzahom, the people went out, Vayaviu, Vayasul have Sukkahs, they brought and they made for them Sukkahs, Ish al Gagoy, each person on his roof, and in their courtyards, and in the courtyard of the house of Hashem in the Beis Hamikdash, and in the street, which is the gate of the water, and in the gate, the street of the gate of Ephraim. It was a great joy. Freer in Pasuk, as he says early in the Pasuk, this is given Azah Grace Simcha. This was such a great joy. As funded Zeiten von Yeshua ben Nun is the given Azah Simcha. From the times of Yeshua ben Nun, there wasn't such a great joy. Rebbe brings in a parenthesis that the Kesher Midam Pasuk by Yasu Lahem Sukkos Ish Al Gagai as it relates to the verse that they made sukkahs on the roofs and in the courtyard, the courts of Mizlakim, as state in Chuvas Hagoinim. It's brought down in the response of the Goinim as Mahod Bazei gefragt, that they were asked, do you need to make a sukkah also in a shul? The thought was that you don't need to. It has to be sitting there like you live. Then you need to make a sukkah only in your own home. But not in a shul. But then he continues in this response. We do need to make a sukkah in a shul for the guest. As he says there, as in Baghdad, was dort noch gewöhnt kamen Goinim over there. Many of the Goinim lived. Hat man gemacht sukkahs bebate Knesset Shalom. They made sukkahs in the shuls. And bringt dort euch. And he brings down there also as a is given in Mikdash. So it was the Mikdash from them posik in Nehemiah. From the verse in Nehemiah who is state as vayasalam sukkahs bechatzeres beiselakim. They made sukkahs in the courtyards of the house of God. And the noch is a Messiah in their tshuva. Then he concludes in that response of minhag Yisrael. This is the Jewish tradition as a zoyis minhag Yisrael. That's the custom by Yid. Kol anal. All the above. Then was where there zählt in Nehemiah that we tell us in Nehemiah. Over the Tshuvas HaGoinim with the Pratim and the response of the Goinim and the details. Kemen Aroisnem and Kamar and Mosim. We can take out many hints. Aval Tzorich Le'iyin. Still need to look into it. For as of now, I did not find this in Sforim. The Rebbe is going to tell us now a Chiddush. One of the ideas is on the second day of Rosh Hashanah is great sukkahs to prepare for sukkahs. And to decide as meveton in yonim was mendarftom bechag sukkahs that you're going to do matters that you're going to have to do on sukkahs. Vizen an oif of simcha gedei to do it in a way of great joy. Befrat lefi amavur in Chassidus, especially as explained in Chassidus. As Rosh Hashanah zayin and dodi in yonim v'chagenu. The Rosh Hashanah we also have the matters that we quoted earlier, also of the Chagenu of the festival of Sukkot, Chag HaSukkos, in an oifim for Bakesa in the way of hidden canal sea base, and as it connects to the actuality. As we had spoken in the previous Fabrengen, and in the years that preceding that, to send gifts to those who don't have prepared their own, that needs to be as it is connects to Rosh Hashanah, as the Pasuk talks about Rosh Hashanah. But similar to this, we need to do so also as it relates to the festival of Sukkot. To provide for those who need all matters that you didn't need to have in order to be able to celebrate the Sukkot festival in a way of joy. To a great big simcha. And similar needs to be done also the Yomim Shebenetayim, the in-between days, zwischen Rosh Hashanah and Chag HaSukkos, the Rosh Hashanah as a zone sein Tag ungefilter mit Simcha. They should be days that are full with joy, Simcha Gedoyla Ma'od, and a very great Simcha. Was those tut men oif by alle Eden. This is accomplished by all Yidden. Oich durch the roif, also through the fact was mishtelt seitzu that you provide for them. Oibes feldbazei, if they are lacking. Alles was they darfen haben, everything that they need, so that they can be happy and gladness of heart. Until we reach In the pasuk says it will be the eternal joy over their heads. Vados is verbunden with the geula hamitzvah v'hashlei ma'idei Mashiach tzidkenu, with the true and complete redemption through Mashiach tzidkenu. Mas yivna migdash b'mekoyma, he will build the migdash in its place. Und der nach yekabetz nitche Yisrael, and then he will gather together those who are been pushed away of the Jewish people. And maybe the will in an oifum from hakilas on a way of gathering the people, the men, the women, and the children, and the convert that lives in your gates, in your cities, in them in this year, which is the hakel year, which is the shnas tofshin mem aleph, the year tashma aleph, which is coming towards us for good and for blessing. And even before this, they should be written and sealed immediately for life. The Sifron Shel Tzadikim Gemurim, in the book of the complete Tzadikim, all your people are Tzadikim. As should be written and sealed for the good, Lashon Tova Mesukah, for a good and sweet year, the Tova Nirav Anigla, and the good that is visible and revealed. Ulamata Masar Tvachim, below 10 Tvachim, Ubemheru B'Yameinu Mamish, and very quickly in our days. And again, there's a note here from the publisher that the Rebbe Kwakad Mushlita blessed Birchas Hamozeh, the benching, and then he said, Koishel Brocha, the cup for blessing, Vetman Blineder, that Blineder distribute noch der Isvadus morgen Shabbos b'tzarayim, after the Farbrengen, the next day in the afternoon. This is Mesichas Yom Beis Rosh Hashanah Erev Shabbos Kodesh Tavshin Mem Aleph.